Welcome to Secular Ultra Quran. Now, today we are starting Surah 8, and this one is actually short.
Yes, well, it's shorter. It's not the shortest.
No, but it's shorter. It's short in comparison to all the stuff we've been covering
recently.
up to this point, yeah.
Indeed, it is.
Because we've had stuff that was, 150 verses minimum.
Oh, yeah.
I think Surah 1 was our one cheat.
True.
And then after 2, they've been long.
Yeah.
Surah 1 doesn't count.
It really doesn't.
Yeah,
they say that at the beginning of every single prayer. Although this one is, I think, 75 verses total.
Yeah,
So we'll get
verses.
this one done, this week and next week, and then it's on to the next surah. And I'm not sure how long the next one's going to be.
It feels
but,
like we're in the minor prophets again.
Yeah, it feels like this is like one of those days where we're just covering like Jonah or Obadiah or something like that.
But instead, today we're covering the spoils. And I have the Study Quran and the Quran Project Quran and the Penguin Classics Quran.
I have Qurans from Abdullah Yusuf Ali, from Maulana Muhammad Ali, and the Quran and the Bible from Gabriel Said Reynolds.
We also have a thematic commentary on the Quran. We haven't utilized it much lately.
Right, that is true. We have not. It's been a while. Although there are a couple different names for this chapter, or I should say there's one name. It's Al-Anfal, but it does have some different translations.
Yeah, and I have some introductory material about the surah in general.
Yeah, it looks like
each of these.
This one says that it was this is a Medinan surah, revealed in Medina, and the translation that we get in most of these is the spoils, that being a reference to the spoils of war, but in Maulana Muhammad Ali's, it's translated, and remember, that's the most apologetic commentary I think we have up here. In that translation, it says voluntary gifts. And I think those are two polar opposites.
Yeah, and I do have commentary about the term, but we'll get into it once we actually start the surah.
He's like, it literally means voluntary gifts, though it has also been applied to gains acquired in war, or what is generally called spoils of war. I prefer, however, the literal significance of the word. But if you're talking about the actual war context, and that's what it means, and it means spoils of war in that context, then you should translate it in the context that it. Okay, whatever.
We won't tell you how to write your commentary.
I'll just provide commentary on this now. The word for spoils is anfal, a word whose root generally means excess or beyond what is necessary or required. Some have connected this word with the Islamic belief that among all religious communities, only Muslims are allowed to take spoils of war, based upon a hadith stating that this was one trait by which the Prophet was distinguished.
That is interesting.
Yes.
That is, because like everyone did that. Literally everybody.
Yeah, but it's only legitimate when Muhammad does it.
Name one historic group that didn't take spoils of war.
Right.
Go ahead.
Some commentators have made a distinction between anfal and ghanim, the latter being a more common and inclusive term for spoils of war in Islamic law. Other jurists have stated that anfal refers to wealth received by means other than war, or that it refers to the fifth of the spoils, kumus, mentioned in verse 41. According to some, anfal does not refer to all spoils, but only to the spoils a warrior takes directly from his slain opponents, such as their armor and sword. It's said that because of the disagreements regarding the anfal, the Prophet was asked about the matter and this verse was revealed. Some say that it was abrogated by verse 41, This is in reference to verse 1, which we'll get into as we get further into it. But
This is
you have
funny.
introductory
This is hilarious,
material.
guys.
Yeah.
I think it's like, so we want to have spoils of war. Hey, Mohammed, could you just make something up so that we could have spoils of war? He's like, yeah, sure. I heard something once that spoils of war were great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
From
absolutely.
God. Yeah.
Here's something kind of interesting. So in this section, he's talking about the acquisition of booty, and yes, that is the technical term. So the acquisition of it,
avast,
yes,
matey.
and he goes on to talk about how, like, well, if you're taking a bunch of stuff, you're going to give it to the people, you're going to give it to like the sovereign. And then he goes on to say these principles are followed in the best modern practice of civilized nations. All acquisitions of war belong absolutely to the sovereign as representing the commonwealth. And then, which I already think is, out there, then it gets really funny because he says here, in the distribution of booty, not only the actual captors, but also the joint captors and the constructive captors share. And he cites a book from 1885.
Okay.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit
Top
more
topical
about
reference.
this surah. According to the Quran Project, it was revealed in 2 AH after the Hijrah, after the Battle of Badr, the first battle between Islam and disbelief. As it contains a detailed and comprehensive review of the battle, it appears that most probably it was revealed all at once at the same time. It's also possible that some of the verses concerning the problems arising as a result of the battle might have been revealed later and incorporated at the proper places to make it a continuous whole. Now, the study Quran states Al-Anfal takes its name from the reference to the spoils in verse 1. It's an early Medinan surah, though some maintain that verse 30 or verses 30 through 36 are from the Meccan period, as they're understood by some to refer to the attempts made on the Prophet's life by the Quraysh before he migrated to Medina. Some also maintain that verse 63 is Meccan, since it is reported to have been revealed when Umar ibn al-Khattab embraced Islam. A major theme of the surah is the Battle of Badr, fought a year after the Hijrah, the migration from Mecca to Medina, the first major military confrontation between the Muslim community and the Quraysh of Mecca, who had continued their hostility towards the the Muslim community after it had moved to Medina. It discusses also the matter of the spoils of war, their just distributions, a topic that did not need to be addressed in the days when Muslims were an oppressed minority in Mecca. The spiritual dimensions of battle are also treated, including the assistance of angels, the will of God in determining victory, and a famous statement in verse 17, "You did not slay what you slew, but God slew them, and thou threwest not when you threw, but God threw." Al-Anfal also describes the challenges and trials of battle, the triumph and sincere believers over great odds, provides important guidelines for dealing with captives, as well as the observation of treaties. The Battle of Badr was an important first victory among the young Muslim community and is cited in the commentary in many verses of the Quran as evidence of God's favor upon it. The last part of the surah addresses the relationship between those Muslims who already migrated from Mecca to Medina and those who had not, outlining their responsibilities towards one another. What commentary do you have?
Nothing else on the whole section. I'm gonna have a couple things once we at least get in through the first verse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nothing else explicitly on the section. It looks like there's gonna be a few apologetics, but we'll see. We'll see what the commentaries say. I feel like just
I
the
have
understanding.
several pages of introductory commentary in this about this surah.
Oh, that's interesting. So
I have like 5 pages of material.
that's quite a bit. I don't think we'll have to go over 5 pages for a show like this. No, most of the stuff that I have, I covered the important stuff, and a lot of it is just explaining the Battle of Badr itself. But we are going to get a description. We already had kind of a summary beforehand in a different surah, and this is some of this feels like it's just about arguably like a tax almost.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into that. I feel like most of the commentary is just related to that first verse because that's where they're talking about the meaning of this term, or at least through the first section, I would say, because they're talking about the distribution of these things as well.
Yeah.
So
now there is a small bit at the end of this commentary for the introduction, which I will go over. The topics of discussion here. The moral lesson of the conflict between the truth and falsehood has been enunciated, and the qualities which lead to a success in a conflict have been explained. The surah gives instruction in regard to the spoils of war. The Muslims have been told not to regard these as their right, but as a bounty from God. Therefore, they should accept it with gratitude that the share is granted to them out of it, and willingly accede to the share which God sets apart for his cause and for the help of the needy. Then it also gives normal instructions concerning laws of peace and war for those who were urgently needed to be explained at the stage which the Islamic movement had entered. It enjoined that the Muslims should refrain from ways of ignorance in peace and war, and thus should establish their moral superiority in the world. It also meant to demonstrate to the world in actual practical life the morality which it had been preaching to the world from the beginning of Islam, and had been enjoining that practical life should be based upon the same. It also states some articles of the Islamic Constitution which help differentiate the status of the Muslims living within the limits of the abode of Islam from that of the Muslims living beyond its limits. So diaspora Muslim communities. Okay.
let's hop into the reading then, shall we?
All right. I'll unfold the spoils in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. They question thee concerning the spoils. Say, the spoils belong to God and the messenger. So, reverence God and set matters aright among yourselves and obey God and his messenger if you are believers.
Yeah, so aside from the different translations, some of them we've already been over. What's his name again? Said Reynolds. That's right. He says, classical and modern commentators alike inevitably connect these verses with the story. Oh, yeah, they talk about the Battle of Badr. It is possible, however, that much or all of that story was written to explain these verses. The manner in which particular turns of phrase in the Quran provoked commentators to tell such stories is seen in the comments of Wahidi on a phrase in verse 17. And you did not throw when you threw, rather it was God who threw. He relates, quote, most Quranic commentators are of the opinion that this verse was revealed about the handful of valley dust that the messenger of God threw on the idolaters on the day of Badr. In that occasion, he threw the handful of dust and said, let the faces be distorted, and some of this dust went into the eyes of every single idolater. In my opinion, this tradition, like the other traditions Wahidi reports, is less of a memory of what really happened and more a story invented to explain an unclear turn of phrase. So it's interesting that from Said Reynolds, he's saying that this could totally be like the invented narrative of a weird phrase, which we get throughout biblical history all the time.
Yeah.
Like the amount of like traditional commentaries that just kind of pull shit out of their asses
Yeah.
is wild.
They make absolutely ridiculous conclusions sometimes too. Even when we were referencing Eerdmans, there were occasionally some authors in Eerdmans who were a little wacky.
That is true. Let's see. Booty taken in a lawful and just war does not belong to any individual. I think the point in this section is that if you're fighting for, if you're just fighting for money or for goods, you're fighting for the wrong reasons. That's the point here.
Well, it's that the booty in war belongs to God.
Right. Yeah.
And like, if you get a portion of that, good for you.
Sure, yeah. Any portion given out to individuals are accessory gifts. Yeah, it's like anything that you get, it should just be icing on the cake, I guess. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the fact that I guess it is a bit of a different philosophy to spoils of war.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that this would make you more appreciative of those spoils, but in effect, some person is still taking those things.
You know, Lawrence, all of your belongings belong to God, and
Yeah, exactly.
God has determined that I should have them.
Wow.
What are you going to do about it?
I can't argue with that logic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you were to argue with it, then you would be preventing me from practicing my religion.
Right, yeah. And that deserves stuff, yeah. Okay.
Only they are believers whose hearts quake with fear when God is mentioned, and when his signs are recited unto them, they increase them in faith, and they trust in the Lord, who perform the prayer and spend from that which we have provided them. It is they who truly are believers. For them are ranks in the sight of their Lord, and forgiveness and a generous provision.
Let's see here. Just a different translation here. It is they who are truly faithful. They shall have ranks near their Lord, forgiveness and a noble provision. Okay, so yeah, they are basically exalted in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have this like the true believers, right? We always talk about how they're going to be the ones in paradise, and then the losers are the ones who will lose.
Right.
And they're going to go to the underworld and hell, and it's going to be bad. Although this is exalting the people that, he says fear, right? And this is the same fear of God that we see throughout the Abrahamic faiths. Throughout all of them. That is supposed to somehow signify love, I guess?
Well, it signifies some form of
true faith.
Misguided respect.
Yeah. Respect is the word there. You know what? That explains a lot about the people who think that the current administration is strong because people fear them, and I'm like, that's not the same thing, man.
Yeah, well, the current administration is
more of a regime than an administration.
It's not just that, like, abstractly some of the things they do are stupid, but, like, on the face of it, it's stupid. Like,
how do you feel about that habeas corpus, guys?
Isn't that the constitutional right that the president has to deport whoever he wants?
I heard that from someone on TV recently.
Ah.
Oh, I hate this country.
I
mean, I love this country.
Yeah.
No criticism from me here.
Lawrence,
obviously a joke.
Lawrence definitely never had, like, communist stuff, like, painted in his house or anything.
No, never. No, that would be really, really bad.
Not once.
Yeah.
Let's continue. Remember how thy Lord brought thee forth from thy home in truth, while a group of the believers were averse to disputing with thee concerning the truth after it had become clear, as though they were being driven to death as they looked on. So these people who didn't want to go on the Hijra.
Yeah, the circumstances of the Battle of Badr have been misunderstood. Oh, this is from the apologetic commentary, so let's see what happens. Have been misunderstood even by some Muslims. Christian opinion on the point is summed up in Palmer's note, quote, "The occasion alluded to was one when Muhammad had made preparations for attacking an unarmed caravan on its way from Syria to Mecca, when Abu Sufyan, who was in charge of it, sent word to Mecca and obtained an escort of nearly 1,000 men. Many of Muhammad's followers wished to attack the caravan only, but the Prophet and his immediate followers were for throwing themselves on the escort. While the several incidents mentioned here," and now this is he's done with the quote. While the several incidents mentioned here are separately true, there is a misconception as to their relation to each other. It is true that a caravan was returning from Syria and an army had marched from Mecca. It is also true that some of the Muslims wish that they should encounter the caravan and not face the Meccan force. Had the Holy Prophet desired to plunder the caravan, he would have done so long before Abu Sufyan could obtain help from Mecca. Or contain. What fucking word is that? So, I don't even want to pronounce that. I'm going to butcher that. What word is this? I know that if I...
Soccer?
Is that how you say that? Okay. I don't think I've ever heard that word before. From Mecca. Medina was situated... Oh, I don't care where it was. But it was a distance of 13 days journey from Mecca, so that if the Holy Prophet had actually any idea of plundering the caravan...
Yes, Lilith, that form of succor.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my life. So, yeah, if he had any actual idea of the plundering of the caravan when it approached Medina, succor, I guess. Is that how I say it?
Yeah.
Okay, could not have reached Abu Sufyan in less than a month, even if he had been apprised of the Holy Prophet's intentions. Okay. I'm not... Okay, that's a fine... I'll look back into this later. Yeah, pronounce the same as sucker. Okay, I guess. All right. That's new to me.
Sucker.
Yeah.
Well, now you know. You learn
no.
something new every day. You know, Lawrence, you just graduated, right?
I did just graduate.
Do you have your diploma?
No.
Why not?
Because I have to wait for that to arrive.
That's obnoxious.
Did you have a party?
I didn't have a party.
No?
No.
Wow.
We should have a party.
Why?
Yes. I don't know.
Everybody is invited. Right now, we're having a party. And at that party, we're reading the Quran.
It's not the party I meant, but okay.
You meant the CCP.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Whoops.
That is that. I heard somewhere that that's his favorite party.
Yeah, no.
I love the
Misheard.
party. It's so great, and I love when they raise my social credit score. Okay.
Frosted Flakes.
Remember when God promised you that one of the two companies was to be yours, and you wished that the unarmed one would be yours? But God desires to verify the truth through his words and to cut off the last remnant of the disbelievers so that he may verify the truth and prove falsehood to be false, though the guilty be averse.
It's interesting that they say here, or at least Maulana Muhammad Ali's translation says he's going to cut off the root of the disbelievers.
Yeah, so one of the two companies here, it refers to the Meccan army and to the caravan from Syria, the latter being one that was unarmed. The prospect of taking the caravan seemed realistic, But some of the Prophet's followers were less enthusiastic about facing the Meccan army and tried to persuade the Prophet not to go out to face the army. Rather than simply acquiring the fleeting wealth of the caravan, doing battle with the Meccan army would lead to a decisive victory that would fundamentally undermine the enemy and change the strategic balance between Muslims and their enemies.
Thank you, Ralph. I was gonna look up the definition because I've never heard this before. Posted the definition
for sucker.
Yeah. Never heard it. He says in there that it's almost unused now. So
yeah,
don't blame me.
It's in literature. If you were to read more fiction.
Yeah. No, I don't do that.
You currently are.
I'm reading something that's kind of related to that. Yeah, but
you have a degree in classics.
I do. Yeah.
Aren't all of those fiction?
I mean, yeah, you could put it that way, but they're all really, really ancient.
Oh,
fiction.
So it's different when it's really old.
Yes,
fiction.
it is actually.
It gets stale over time.
No, yes. Here's what happens.
It gets
Here's
crunchy.
Here's what happens. So the old stuff is interesting because you are reading something through the eyes of people who do not experience life the same way you do at all. It's completely different. There is basically nothing culturally or technologically that is similar between me and the people of ancient Greece or something. They were just living a completely different life with completely different standards and all that stuff, right? But if I'm reading fiction from today, it's just fiction for the sake of fiction, and there's nothing extra that I can gain from it. And it sucks and it's boring.
Dang.
It's the same thing because your experience is not the experience of another person.
That is true, but it's far closer to the experience of the person writing today than the person writing 2,000 years ago.
Technically speaking, yes. But modern fiction could represent another person's perspective on the writing of people long ago.
It could.
For example, Star Wars was intentionally created by George Lucas as a way to present the hero's journey specifically to a modern audience in a way that would speak to them in the way that ancient Greek mythology spoke to the average Greek.
Sure, yes. And in that case, it could be good if you're looking to experience that. But I'm not looking to experience that stuff. I'm looking to understand someone else's experience of it.
Yeah.
So I would rather read someone's critical analysis of Star Wars.
Well, there's
I'm sure there's a ton.
There's several 12-hour long YouTube videos out there.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But I would rather do that than watch Star Wars.
But you wouldn't.
I guess watching movies isn't that bad because that I don't have to put in any effort. But if it's because I'm watching, so it's different.
You actually get better at that over time if you just read more fiction.
Fuck that.
It's like a skill.
I read a lot of books on history.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not the same.
You're right. It's not. It's very different.
You don't have to engage visually with it in the same way.
That is true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely different.
Though I
don't want that experience.
If you did read history, if you're reading Herodotus,
sure, yeah,
you're doing the full imagination ride to go along with it. You theoretically could gain some of the same benefit, I guess.
Theoretically.
No,
I'll stick to the ancient texts and analyses of those ancient texts.
Yeah, read anything from 100 years ago. You will know sucker.
That is probably true. You're probably right.
You'll also be no sucker.
That one, I don't know about that one.
Anyways, we're reading the Quran.
And I think you just got done with verse 8, but
And speaking of which, when you sought succor from your Lord, he responded to you, I shall aid you with 1,000 angels, rank upon rank.
Also, the angels helped in this battle.
Yeah, the angels obviously helped in this battle. With regards to whether the angels provided physical or spiritual help, we've discussed this before. This did get brought up in Surah 3.
Yeah.
This verse seems to support an understanding that the angels did not participate in a physical manner, but gave spiritual power and strength to believers.
Does it, though?
Well,
I don't know. It seems like it says, I will assist you with 1,000 of the angels following one another. And
in the next verse.
okay.
And God made it not save as a glad tiding.
And Allah gave it only as good news.
And that your hearts may be at peace thereby. And victory comes from God alone. Truly God is mighty. Why?
So this is very reminiscent of that part in it's in Kings, I'm pretty sure, right? Where he sees, I forget who it was, but they see the army, God's heavenly host, right? And like this is just before a battle. And they see God's own army, but no one else sees it. So this kind of takes up that same motif of God having his own army. But in this way, it's not even suggesting like physical help. It is suggesting that moral help, but like it's almost like, was it Elisha? Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Elisha or Elijah. I always forget which one. But yeah, Elisha shows his servant this, like right out the window. He's like, hey, look out there. Here's a whole bunch here's God's fucking army. And it's a cool scene. But I would say that in that one, while not explicitly stating that the heavenly army helped, or at least, physically, like in a battle, doesn't describe their actions or anything. Mm-hmm. It does suggest that they were there for it, and you could argue that it's the same type of help that's being employed here.
Yeah. And Trevorn, so there is an explanation for this in Islam, right? The explanation is that all of the bad people, all of the evil spirits, the devil, they were all created for hell.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. They're explicitly for the sole purpose of populating hell.
Yeah, there is no... Islam is very explicitly deterministic.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I'm down with that. But I'm glad that they at least acknowledge it. They don't pretend with all the free will arguments.
Yeah. Behold!
Behold.
Also, hold on. April. So I heard that insult very recently in a Jovan, I think it was a Jovan debate clip, and I was like, that's really good. I'm going to use that. And I haven't used it yet because I keep forgetting it, but it's so fucking good. How good is that insult, though?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, fucking right. So, like, I saw it and I was like, that's fucking awesome right there. Mm-hmm. And yes, I agree. Jovan is awesome. Yes. Thank you for reminding me of that, April. So, oh, you found my comment. Okay. That's funny as fuck.
He covered you with sleepiness, security from him, and sent down upon you water from the sky to purify you thereby, to remove the defilement of Satan from you, to fortify your hearts, and to make firm your steps thereby. Quite a few rhymes in there. The defilement of Satan is thought to be, by some, to refer to the state of ritual impurity that makes it necessary to perform ablutions with water, if water is available, as a condition for performing the canonical prayer.
Yeah, they have a lot of fancy rules for the prayers. And the thing is, if there's no, like, water around you, you have to, like, you simulate it with dirt, but only with parts of, like, your body. Like, they have a lot of weird ways to get around this stuff. And I was told after being explained all the weird ways, that's like, oh, well, God doesn't want to make things complicated. I'm like, actually, it sounds like he's making things complicated. Huh?
Absolutely. Behold!
Behold!
Old. It's 2, right?
Yes.
Wow, in a row. Pretty good.
Thy Lord revealed unto the angels, truly I am with you, so make firm those who believe. I shall cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, so strike above their neck and strike their every fingertip. That is because they are in schism with God and his messenger. And whosoever opposes God and his messenger, truly God is severe in retribution.
So he, at least in verse 12 there, he seems to be sending out his holy army to act like a little mafia. Be like, would be a shame if something happened to that neck of yours.
Yeah.
That's essentially what's going on.
Thus it is, so taste it, and know that the disbelievers shall have the punishment of the fire. Very comforting, isn't it?
I mean, they don't try to hide this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty explicit, off repeated. So.
O you who believe, when you meet those who disbelieve, arrayed for battle, turn not your backs to them, and whosoever turns his back to them that day, unless it be a stratagem of battle or to withdraw to another company, shall certainly earn wrath from God, and his refuge shall be hell. What an evil journey's end.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, so those who turn his back on that day, unless maneuvering for battle, basically, they incur Allah's wrath. That's crazy. So, like, if you're up against disbelievers in a battle,
don't retreat.
Yeah, don't retreat
unless it's an intentional feint, or unless they're joining another group from their own army with the intention of rejoining the battle.
Yeah, unless it's strategic, don't retreat. And if you do, you essentially get the same punishment as they do, actually.
Well, thinking about it, I mean, before, it's been the case that those who die in battle for the sake of God are given a special status as martyrs.
True. Yeah.
And so, theoretically, right, it is better in these holy war type battles to die as a martyr than to survive and earn the wrath of God, right? That's the point that they're trying to get across.
The question is, it says, like, when you're up against disbelievers, but does the actual war need to be about, like, belief?
I don't think so. It's just
right.
You're up against disbelievers.
Against non-Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know. Are the people of the book
people
included?
of the book might be a different story, right? Because they do have, a different. They do have some special rules for them. They kind of see them as important, but of a different level of importance, I guess. Different clearance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am not sure if that would count, but let's say, they're up against, some pagans, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the battle wasn't about anything religious particularly, turning away from it, this could be interpreted as, turning away from that battle, could be seen as turning away from God. Because if it was a religious war, then I could see why staying in would be necessary, because at that point you are explicitly fighting for God. Mm-hmm. But if it's not an explicitly religious war, then I don't see the biggest deal in retreating. Because at that point, would you be fighting for God?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, everything is in accordance with God's will.
I suppose, yeah, I guess. You could argue, I can see that.
That seems loophole.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. Like, I don't know.
No, loophole is bad. You die now.
All right, I'm going to read one more verse and then I'll hand it off to you.
Okay.
You did not slay them, but God slew them. And thou threwest not what thou threwest, but God threw, that he might try the believers with a beautiful trial from him. Truly, God is hearing, knowing. We've had commentary that we've already referred to on this verse. But the verse may be related to several accounts that describe the prophet picking up a handful of pebbles or dust and throwing it at the enemy.
Yeah, this, so Abdul Yusuf Ali actually does know here, when you threwest a handful of dust. And he says here, when the battle began, the holy apostle prayed and threw a handful of dust or sand at the enemy, symbolic of their rushing blindly to their fate. That's an awful symbol.
Pocket sand.
Yeah, or God, what that episode of Psych where Gus was the he the Sandman, or like he did have a pocket full of sand and just threw sand at people's eyes, and that was his superpower.
Sand.
Yeah. This had a great psychological effect. What? Every act in the battle is ascribed to God as it was in his cause. So this does seem like the interpretation here would be a religious war. And it was not undertaken except by his command. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I do not see how that would be a brilliant psychological tactic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a 5-headed play.
Yeah, for some reason.
Pocket sand is a great psychological tactic. You temporarily blind someone by throwing sand in their eyes.
You said that's temporary.
Well, because the thing is,
you don't need that long.
Sand is permanent.
But the thing is, the throwing of it was symbolic. It wasn't even throwing it in their face.
Mm-hmm.
It was a symbolic throw.
Well, there's several different accounts where he does throw it in people's faces.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Throws it at the enemy, saying, "Curse your faces." In one version, it's 3 pebbles.
Some rocks. Okay.
In another version, the prophet took a handful of dust. It's carried by the wind, and it blinds them.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
In another, the throwing refers to Uhud.
A different battle.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I guess
could see this being like, if you threw dust in the wind and it happened to get carried over and blind your opponents.
Yeah.
Then you would be, if you're a prophet, right? You would be like, oh, well, I didn't throw, but God threw it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was God's curveball.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I suppose I can continue with verse 18.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll be reading out of Gabriel Said Reynolds. Such is the case, and know that God undermines the stratagems of the faithless. If you sought a verdict, the verdict has already come to you. And if you cease your belligerence against the prophet and his followers, it is better for you. But if you resume, we too shall return, and your troops shall never avail you, though they should be ever so many, and know that God is with the faithful.
This verse is understood in 3 ways. Some see it as an address to disbelievers, who also prayed for victory and who are thus ironically informed that victory has arrived, but with the disbelievers as the vanquished, not the victors. A second opinion sees it addressed to the believers, who are given victory, but who are warned against their conduct regarding the spoils. A third opinion considers the first sentence to be addressed to the believers. Then, if you desist, begins a new address to disbelievers, meaning that they should desist from their hostility. And if you return, we shall return, means that if the disbelievers return to hostilities, God will return as well. The last sentence of the verse is read by some as a continuation of verse 18, while others read it as meaning, truly God is with the believers.
Yeah, it looks like there's the interpretation here that this is related to. Yeah, it is related that when the Quraysh left Mecca to attack the Muslims, they held on to the curtains of the Kaaba, and prayed thus: "O Allah, assist the best of the two forces, and the most rightly directed of the two parties, and the most honored of the two groups, and the most excellent of the two religions." Others say that Abu Yal prayed in the field of battle, saying, "O Allah, whoever of us is the greater cutter of the ties of relationship and more wicked, destroy him tomorrow morning." Palmer's remark in this connection that the Quraysh prayed in the above words when, quote, they were threatened with an attack from Muhammad, is a travesty of the facts. Indeed, it is utterly absurd to speak of Muhammad threatening the Quraysh. Oh, okay, when the Muslims did not constitute even 1,000th part of the... Okay, that's not the... He's like, oh, they're a small part of the population. They can't threaten them. That's not how threats work, legally speaking. But that is... Yeah, this is the most apologetic version that we have up here. But yeah, some people relate this to the Quraysh and Muhammad.
Okay. Well, continue on.
Yeah, I suppose I will. So with verse 20. "O you who have faith, obey God and his apostle, and do not turn away from him while you hear him. Do not be like those who say, 'We hear,' though they do not hear. Indeed, the worst of beasts in God's sight are the deaf and dumb who do not exercise their reason. Had God known any good in them, he would have surely made them hear, and were he to make them hear, they would turn away, being disregardful." So in this section, verses 20 through 23, we have a couple things that kind of pop back up. So we have the idea once again that God ultimately has control over what people believe, because he can make them hear. But the reason he doesn't make them hear is because they are too deaf and dumb.
Those who don't have eyes to see or ears to hear.
Yeah. Huh? What?
Now he's not. They're not speaking literally here about people who are deaf, but they are
serious ableism in the Quran.
Right? Yeah. But this is the same language that we get in throughout the Bible about people who just refuse to believe. They're very stubborn, right? So this is very much in the. Because it says here, where is that? Yeah, who do not exercise their reason, at the end of verse 22. Now, that's how Said Reynolds translates it. In verse 22, it says here that surely the vilest of beasts in Allah's sight are the deaf, the dumb, who understand not. So
yes, the worst of living creatures in the sight of God.
No,
so, I want to point out
those
that
who don't understand,
in the previous surah, we had some explicit dehumanization, even further, because they were they're even lower than cattle for non-believers. And here in this surah, we again have explicit it's not explicit dehumanization, but it is ranking them on a hierarchy below all other living things.
Right, yeah.
And presumably that's lower than things that you're allowed to kill and eat.
Because the thing is, if people could be saved, God would have saved them already. He would have made them, right?
Yeah.
Which, listen, I'm not sure how this works in a deterministic worldview when you have a deity controlling this. But it brings up a lot of moral questions.
You've got to presume that the Muslims that who know you're not a believer, do not think of you as the worst of living creatures.
That is definitely not true.
Yeah,
they do not feel that way.
So
I hope not. If they did, I feel like I would know it by how they acted.
might be a little.
Yeah. And there's comment, but it's not like commentary that goes into any. It doesn't say that it's been like abrogated or anything. So, is this something that some sect of Islam holds right now?
That's a good question.
I wonder. Because it's a consistent theme in this and the previous surah.
That is true. That is true. What was that, verse 22?
Yeah, verse 22.
That's something else I'll write down. But that is an interestingly low point that that they put unbelievers at. But this is only the unbelievers that can't be saved, right? Now, I think a lot of the time, to get around something like this, the modern Muslims will just be like, well, whatever God decides to do in the future, that's his business, right? So they're like, oh, you might be saved, so you might not be the worst, but they wouldn't know that. So maybe their reason that they wouldn't listen to something like this or to act upon something like this is because they could still argue that, well, God could show up for this person in the future. I guess that would be.
What about for deceased persons?
Well, yeah, they're the vilest of the vile.
Yeah, so like Chris Hitchens or.
Oh, yeah, the vilest, yeah.
The vilest, the lowest of all living creatures.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he's not a living creature at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So we can continue on, I guess, with verse 24.
Yep.
Yeah, I will continue. Oh, by the way, and I didn't say this before, so I should now. Hey, you know what? Make sure you drop a like on the stream. If you don't, Ruben's gonna come over to your place and punch you.
I'm not gonna.
And you don't want Ruben to punch you. He knows like martial arts.
I'm not gonna punch you.
He's gonna punch you. So don't.
Lawrence
make sure
to
make sure to like the stream.
Slam you or
I'm gonna what?
Choke slam.
Yeah, I'm gonna choke slam you. So make sure to drop a like.
That's real. That's a threat
Yeah.
that Lawrence is making.
Absolutely. Definitely I could do that.
13,000 kilometers away. Well, Lawrence has got a really good choke slam.
I saw this clip of it was an indie wrestling show, and there was God, what day was it? It was on a. Oh wait, hold on. Did we cut out? Did we
have excellent connection?
Now it says we have excellent connection.
Okay.
We might have cut out for a bit.
Hey fellas, are we
I
back?
didn't see anything on our end.
So it looks like we're back.
It appears that we're back. Are we back? Hey everyone.
Hey.
Do you see us? Do you hear us?
Yeah, it is acting like we're back.
Error.
Not receiving enough video to maintain. What is this talking about? So audio's back, but I guess the visuals are not great.
Okay, we're back.
And there's vid.
Okay. We have returned.
That was weird.
Dear viewers.
Yeah, that was really weird.
You know what's really weird?
That?
The Amazing Atheist is now like a hardcore chaos wizard.
Do you mean the way he dresses?
No, I mean he completely rebranded himself as like Frey the chaos wizard.
Yeah, he did.
And but that's like his new public persona is
Yeah.
that he's a fucking wizard.
I think that's great. I think he's really taking all that all those years of watching wrestling to heart. That's really good. Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, I was saying there was this indie wrestling show where it was on, I think it was during Christmas. So Santa was one of the wrestlers, and he was losing. And you know who came out to help Santa? Jesus. And Jesus, he was wrestling with his god powers. So he was
like,
it was very like Darth Vader, the Force kind of thing. Yeah, it was like that. It was great stuff. Loved it. It was only for like 2 or 3 minutes at the end of a match, but it was great. Wrestling should be fun. So I'm gonna continue with verse 24. That's what I'm gonna do. That's a better decision.
Stop.
do it.
Oh, you who have faith, answer God and the apostle when he summons you to that which will give you life. Know that God intervenes between a man and his heart, and that you will be mustered toward him. I made a mustard joke earlier to Chris.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I relish the fact that you've
You'll
mustered up the strength to catch up to me.
Oh, so much of horseradish.
Great stuff. Great stuff. He intervenes between a man and his heart. So again,
It
deterministic
means
feature.
that he comes between a disbeliever and faith,
Right, yeah.
or between a believer and disbelief, or that nothing's hidden from God.
It sounds like he controls people's hearts. That's how this comes off.
It sounds like Muhammad really liked the Pharaoh story, but didn't quite remember.
Yeah, didn't quite remember what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I like the story, but I didn't pay all the attention to it. So
Continue.
Only paid some.
I did though. That's the problem. I'm
All
just
right.
pretending to be someone who didn't.
Verse 25, and beware. Beware is pretty good.
Ah.
Beware of a punishment which shall not visit the wrongdoers among you exclusively.
Oh,
And know that God is severe in retribution. So another punishment.
Many interpret this verse as pertaining to those participants in the Battle of Badr who later came to fight with each other on the Battle of the Camel, i.e. the initial battle of the First Civil War during the Caliphate of Ali. One companion is quoted as having referenced this verse in the context of the battle. Al-Qurtubi mentions a hadith that sets forth the parable of a ship with some people above deck and others below. If rather than ask those above for water, those riding below punctured a hole in the hull to get water themselves, the ship would sink. This means that doing wrong and allowing wrong to be done can have an effect that spreads to those who had no role in it, since human beings often have no choice but to be affected by the actions and the states of others with whom they exist in community.
dang. They don't like hermits.
I suppose not. So verse 26, remember when you were few, abased in the land, and feared lest the people should despoil you. And he gave you refuge and strengthened you with his help and provided you with all the good things so that you may give thanks. That's very it's very wilderness narrative.
Yeah.
It seems to be like the exact same kind of idea.
It refers to the weak and persecuted state in which the Muslims were living in Mecca before they migrated to Medina.
You who have faith, do not betray God and the apostle, and do not betray your trusts knowingly. Know that your possessions and children are only a test, and that God, with him, is a great reward.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I'm guessing, well, not just this, a whole bunch of places in the Quran. But this is one of the many places where it's like life is a test and all this stuff is a test.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately your devotion should be to God and the Prophet.
Yes, this would reflect the general theme of this part of the surah, that good things can also be trials, such as victory on the battlefield and spoils of war.
Oh, yeah. They're taking it as a trial. That's right. Okay, so here the I'm not sure if this is the point here, but Ali does bring up that usually a big family is seen as powerful because, like, you have a big progeny, you have a strong house, right? But in this case, none of that shit fucking matters because you're talking about, like, the kingdom of God and not earthly kingdoms. So either way, continuing on with verse 29. Oh, you who have faith, if you are wary of God, he will appoint a criterion for you and absolve you of your misdeeds and forgive you. For God is dispenser of a mighty grace. criterion here is Karai's reading of Furqan in light of the Arabic meaning of the root meaning to divide. And indeed, almost all translators and most classical commentaries conceive of something similar. However, Furqan here seems to have a meaning closer to the Aramaic or Syriac term Purkanu, from this same root, namely salvation or redemption. Thus, we might render the passage in question as, if you are wary of or simply fear God, he shall save you. The authors of Tafsir al-Jalayn, without recognizing the Aramaic origin of Furqan, seem to realize from context that this must be the case and relate, quote, he will grant you a means of separation between yourselves and what you fear, so that you will be delivered. And I'm guessing the what you fear part is like being one of the losers and, hell.
Yeah.
I guess unless you have something to add, I'll continue.
No. Keep going.
So verse 30. When the faithless plotted against you to take you captive or to kill or expel you, they plotted and God devised, and God is the best of devisers. We haven't seen that in a while. Yeah. We've not seen God's, what's it called? His scheming ways, his conniving ways in a while.
Right.
Because that was one of the big things in Surah 2, right? That
Now, the term, when used of God, does not have the pejorative connotation.
right, yeah. But the thing is, like, it's all his divine plan,
Yeah.
is what it is. So, like, you're never going to outplan God because he sees all of the possible moves ahead. All right. Verse 31. When our signs are recited to them, they say, we have heard already. If we want, we too can say like this. These are nothing but myths of the ancients. Yo, based.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's
That's
use that.
pretty based.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Maybe I should.
It's true. It
I should
is
put that on a
nothing
sticker or something.
but the myths of the ancients.
Yeah.
It's
I'm-
currently the myths of the ancients.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna little what's it called, dog ear? I'm gonna dog ear this page, and I'm gonna put that on a shirt. It's gonna say like we've heard it already.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are ancient myths. Good job.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Apparently we're gonna see myths of the ancients. I think we already got like some polemics against like ancient beliefs, right? Or like within the Quran, what they view as like outdated
fables
beliefs.
of
Fables,
old is also mentioned in 625,
Right.
2383, 25:5, 27:68, 46:17, and 68:15.
Yeah. This does reference 68:15, but I knew we already covered stuff like that. Why? What? Okay, what is wrong with dog earing? I understand with like writing in books, but what is wrong with dog earing a page? All right, it's not that bad. I'm gonna reference this material later.
Yeah, it's in an empty section of the page, but it could potentially tear.
I understand like why someone would get annoyed if I'm writing in a book, but like if I'm just doing like a little thing, I don't know. I don't see that as a big issue. Although, April's just going to fucking cook me in the comments anyway, so I'm just going to let her do that.
Big issue.
Yeah, I know. 32. And when they said, oh, God.
Oh, God.
God.
If this be the truth from you, rain down upon us stones from the sky or bring us a painful punishment. So this
Yeah.
is asking for more signs, right?
Yeah,
And he said he's not going to do that. He said he's not going to be tested, right? Except for the one time at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Oh, my unfinished journey with the 666. Huge. Hail Nero, Lawrence, Ruben, and Chris, and hail Allah the Great. Wait, what is that?
Multiplicand.
Multiplicand. Okay. Oh, wait. Great Divisor. Okay. I was like, what is going on there?
Funny.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Much appreciated.
People forget I exist. It's nice to hear. That's good. Good job.
Hey, I never forget you exist.
Why not?
You're the greatest person to ever exist.
That's
You
can't be true.
are
I hope not. I'm not terrible, but I hope I'm not the great. Boy,
The
that really
greatest.
means humanity's done very little. Let's be clear.
Rude and I are building a statue of you.
Stop. Cease. I need no.
We're using that 666 we got from my
build a
unfinished journey to build a
Please,
statue.
no.
It will be a very small statue.
Just 3D printed. Okay, fine.
Yeah, the 3D. We're actually going
The
to use your
size of a
3D
grain
printer.
of rice.
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
Finally use the thing.
I guess I'll continue on here. That was 32. Unless, did you have something to add? I know that I mentioned the fact that he can't be
No.
tested and all that.
Got nothing.
But God will punish them while you are in their midst. God will not punish them while you are in their midst. Nor will God punish them while they plead for forgiveness. So we're talking about like a full scale, like Sodom type destruction, because he's not going to punish them while they're there.
It mentions the destruction of Lot's people takes place only after he and his family leave the city, as well as the kind of hood in 1158, which we'll get to. In this case, on the one hand, the punishment is withheld by the presence of the prophet or a sincere state of repentance among some of the people, but on the other, unjust control and restriction of the Kaaba leave the Quraysh gravely liable to such punishment. While they seek forgiveness is interpreted to mean if they seek forgiveness. That is, on the condition that they seek forgiveness. Or it can refer to either the believers who are still in Mecca and had not migrated to Medina, or to the meager amount of repentance or forgiveness sought by those idolaters who at least had some notion of God, since they would also pray for forgiveness when they made their circumambulations around the Kaaba. So, continue on.
Verse 34. What excuse have they that God should not punish them when they bar the faithful from the holy mosque, and they are not its custodians? Its custodians are only the God-wary, but most of them do not know. Their prayer, and this is the last verse for the day. Their prayer at the house is nothing but whistling and clapping. So taste the punishment because of what you used to deny.
It's said that while the prophet was in Mecca and would pray near the Kaaba, idolaters would attempt to disrupt his prayer by whistling and clapping beside him. However, others say that the whistling and clapping was actually an established part of pagan rituals performed at the Kaaba in pre-Islamic times.
So I'm gonna have to see if there's evidence for that or not. I could understand.
Why don't you note it?
Yeah, I can note that.
Yeah.
So was that
Verse 35.
was that clapping and whistling?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the reading for today, everyone. Hey, if you enjoyed it, which you should have.
If you didn't enjoy it,
Which you also
Ruben
should've.
is gonna.
Oh my God! Stop saying that. Like, it was a good joke, but you're gonna kill it. You're gonna kill it. Why is Ruben so violent now?
Hey everyone, check out our Amazon wish list, check out our Patreon, check out our Discord, check out Facebook, Twitter, buy our shirts, etc., etc.
Oh, it looks like Nightbot's also been broken, huh?
Yeah, Nightbot's
fuck.
been broken.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
Hey,
That sometimes it got fixed for a little bit
Well,
and then it stopped again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, YouTube even seems to be doing that sometimes still
Just
with the whole
True.
stream. It's
True.
nothing on our end. In fact, we've had no drop frames and we've had beautiful green bars the entire time today.
Yeah, except for like that one.
Nope. No, that's a lie. They just lied to you.
That's fair. I mean, apparently the people also experienced at least
Oh,
some
they
like.
didn't. That's not a lie.
Oh, okay.
That was The why is that we had any issues.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
It's YouTube. They did whatever.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we're getting.
All right. Well, with that being said, we will
see you on Wednesday, 1 week from now. That's the week from now. One away. Wednesday. Wednesday.
Yeah?
Wednesday.
We doing that?
On Wednesday.
Hold on.
Bye.
Ruben wants to know.
Bye.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Okay, bye.